Well, Aidan, Paul, good morning. Welcome to the spectacular surroundings of the Point boardroom here at W5. But we're not here to look at the scenery. We're here to talk about AM Consulting Engineers. Can I start with you, Aidan, and ask you a bit about the history of the firm first of all? Give us some of the background.
Yeah, no problem. So I suppose my name's Aidan McCarthy. I'm the founder and managing director of AM Consulting Engineers. We started trading in sort of mid-2021, and since that time, we've grown to about 13 people. Paul and Sarah came on board as directors in 2022, and together we've grown the thing. We started out purely doing civil engineering. We've then increased our offering. We've brought in structural engineering and geotechnical engineering, so that effectively allows us to provide any design service that you need in the civil engineering industry. And the way I tend to explain the civil engineering industry simply to people is consultants design things and contractors build things. Right. So we're in the consultant side of things. We design things, and most of our clients are the contractors that are building things. So a client will go to a contractor and want a wastewater treatment plant, a building, a bridge, a road, whatever, and they need to take the job on board, get it designed, and then get it built. And that's where we come in. We provide the design service to them contractors. We have an office in Belfast. Our main office is in Belfast. Last year we opened an office in Limerick, and we are working across the island of Ireland, GB, and we're currently looking at other stuff further afield, particularly in the Middle East.
And how has the company developed in terms of specializations and key? You've mentioned some of the overarching areas, but presumably it grows organically through this period.
It has, and I suppose we're lucky in that we've got some really good technical people, and that lets us develop our staff. So like we're Paul and I are very hands-on in the technical delivery and design side of things. Like we're looking out the window here. There's the Titanic signature building behind us. Paul was one of the structural engineers involved in that job, for example. We've worked on some pretty high profile, pretty technically challenging jobs. So that lets us be able to speak, fairly frankly with clients about what can and can't be done. We're like a very technical organization, and that helps in terms of what we're doing. So that lets us then build that technical excellence and that technical ethos into the guys that are working with us. Lets us develop those guys. So young engineers that are working with us, they get given the opportunity to learn, develop themselves. That makes us better and more robust as a company. It lets them take on more responsibility. It lets us then backfeed in underneath them. It lets us then look at other things. So we've got some pretty ambitious growth targets. Certainly in the next 3 to 5 years, we're targeting growth to 50 people. Probably an office in GB, increase the office in Ireland, and increase the office here.
In your background, Paul, I'm from a structural engineering background, so I've traditionally been working in the buildings industry, and in the last sort of about 10 years now, I've got more heavily involved in civil engineering infrastructure as well. So I cover quite a broad range of types of project, anything from bridges to buildings to tunnels, water treatment works, temporary works. So quite a broad discipline background, which is a little bit unique because people seem to specialize in one particular sector. Fortunately, I've got an opportunity to look right across many different sectors. It's good because it just helps sort of broaden everyone's horizons. And if my horizons are broad, I can sort of drill that back into the guys we're working with as well to sort of help them improve their technical excellence and yeah. So you kind of touched on it there, but engineers have a role in just about everything. Even as I look around the cityscape that we're looking at out here,
They do, and as an industry, the civil engineering industry encompasses civil engineering, structural engineering, geotechnical engineering, roads, buildings, bridges. as we look out here, look at the amount of cranes in the horizon. Civil and structural engineers are involved in all of that, and as an industry, we don't shout enough about it, and a lot of people don't know what we do, and that's probably because we're not good enough at explaining it. And you know, I remember a long time ago I was involved in a scheme where you would go into primary schools, and you were as a bit of a STEM sort of ambassador, and you were sort of trying to explain civil engineering to the primary school kids, and with a view that hopefully they look at it as a possible career, and they would understand what's going on. And the way I was sort of thinking, how do I explain this to P6 kids? And the way I sort of ended up doing it, I said that, you know, put your hands up if you slept in a building last night, and they all put your hands up if you went to the toilet this morning, put your hands up if you brushed your teeth, put your hands up if you got in a car and came, or a bus and came on a road, put your hands up if you went over a bridge, you know, and lots of them were putting their hands up. And I was saying that's all civil engineering, you know, and we probably need to be a bit more vocal about it as an industry, and it's probably quite topical at the minute with the Northern Ireland water funding thing. They, you know, obviously the government released programme for government the other day, and of these 9 key priorities, and it's all underpinned by development and investment, and whether, regardless of your views on Brexit, there, you know, some people seem to think there's an opportunity there in dual market access and all that jazz, but you're not going to be able to convince anybody to come here and do anything, to say come and build a big factory, a big office, employ all these people. Oh yeah, but you can't actually build that because the sewage treatment plant can't take the stuff. You know, so like it's all under the ground, and people don't see it, and they don't realise the importance of it. Like every building you see needs water going in and sewage coming out. Yeah. And you know, and everything's at capacity, and it's a big industry that is underpinned really by roads getting to and from the place, and water going in and sewage coming out. And because the water industry's not a sexy industry, it's not something where somebody goes and cuts a ribbon. It's not like opening a hospital or opening a big road and people see it. What they tend to see is a disruption of the road being blocked because somebody's digging a hole in the road, and they don't realise that that's underpinning all this development. And like NI Water has a massive list there of, it's growing all the time, but there's certainly 25 plus areas where development is just embargoed.
Yeah, it's a sort of thing. Doesn't get much praise, but it certainly gets a lot of criticism when things go wrong, because it's so obvious when something fails in the sector. And as I say, without that investment over those last 50 years, and everything being at capacity now, we've really got ourselves stuck. So hopefully there's an opportunity to try and unlock that going forward. But one of the key things for that is to make sure that there's resources in terms of staff that are competent for sort of developing this industry going forward as well, because that's certainly a big challenge, is the availability of competent engineers to work on these things, you know.
Like it's a difficult subject to study at university. You know, like I remember, like Paul and I were at university at the same time, we're in the same class, so we go back a long time together. You know, and I used to always remember like feeling quite hard done by, because we were in classes like 30 plus hours a week, plus then labs, plus then assignments, and you'd be chatting to your mate who did like 6 hours a week, and you're going, two days or something. Yeah, well, I'm doing this for it. You know, so it's a subject. It's very heavily underpinned by maths and physics and geography and chemistry, and they're hard subjects to study, and I think that has led to less people studying it. But it's vital because you know, we sort of touched on it there about how important we see the civil engineering industry. You know, every building you're sitting in, every road you drive on, every time you flush the toilet or take a glass of water, there's been a civil or structural engineer involved in it. But then look at Lough Neagh, or you know, there's environmental issues there that it will be a combination of environmental and civil engineers will probably end up sorting that out. And I suppose there's massive like environmental impacts, or there can be, on if you don't do your civil engineering elements correctly, and sustainability is a big focus for all contractors and all consultants that are designing these things, and it's not just lip service, because if you use less materials, you can build the thing more cost effectively. So there's an absolute benefit of trying to achieve a sustainable solution.
So the big thing about Loughnane is it's not a failure of civil engineering. It's a failure of investment. You know, we know how we could solve that problem. There needs to be a political will to sort of grasp the issue and deal with it. And certainly reversible if the right thought process.
So a lot of it comes down to government investment and government putting money into infrastructure. Yeah,
Absolutely. And what a lot of people probably don't realise, I see most of the water coming out of people's taps originates in Loughnane.
Yep.
It comes out of Loughnane, it goes to water treatment plants, and it goes through the treatment process and ends up in a tap. So, like, you know,
It's in our interest to protect
it's in everybody's interest to make sure that it's looked after.
You mentioned sustainability. How has that changed the playing field, if you like, for companies like yours?
It's becoming more and more. It's always been there, because as I touched on, like if you can use less materials, you can build things more cheaply.
use appropriate materials in the right instance as well.
Yeah, but what we're seeing, certainly in a lot of the public sector tendering now, with the drive towards net zero, it's becoming a differentiator in tender scoring marking schemes. And that we're seeing that in Northern Ireland, we're seeing that in GB, and we're seeing that in Ireland. So it's the drive towards net zero is there in the background, and I suppose the way it seems to be that the government is trying to achieve this is they're, you know, rippling that out through their procurement process. And it's something that's needed. Like, you know, wastage is a big issue in construction. It can be. But wastage costs money, so by default, like, contractors who are building those things, they operate in pretty small margins. Like, you might hear of, you know, there's been a couple of quite big contractors who have gone bust in the past number of years, usually because they're robbing Peter to pay Paul, you know, and the job one is losing a bit of money, then they start job two, and that helps them finish job one, and they're nearly kicking the can down the road. But because they operate on quite small margins, so none of them are going out there to waste anything. So the sustainability thing has always been there, but probably wasn't called sustainability.
Yeah, I think considering sustainability is pretty much embedded in what we do in a way, and you don't actually think about it as sustainability. You think about it as part of your design process. It could just be sort of making sure your designs are extremely lean and working extremely tight. You don't have a lot of extra redundancy in your designs that you don't necessarily need. And that helps drive down cost. It helps make things more buildable if you're using lighter sections and not having to do heavy lifts for making it more difficult for a contractor. But then, like, the industry's obviously gone very much into BIM, building information modeling, and that really helps us properly model structures so that you get proper takeoff, so the contractor knows exactly how much material he needs. So he's not working off AutoCAD drawings and trying to do measurements and being concerned about having enough material to keep the thing going efficiently. Everything can be properly measured and scheduled from a properly coordinated BIM model. And so the industry across the board is everyone's doing that now, and the contractors are seeing the benefits of that. If they've got proper BIM models, they can plan the works properly, they can order materials correctly, and they can look at how they can reduce their wastage and measure their wastage, and all that helps significantly.
I suppose we're possibly doing ourselves a small bit of a disservice here, that we just sort of do it by default, because most of our clients are contractors. So every design we do, we're looking at it to say, how do we get this as lean as possible? Because what we're designing, like, one of the things we say to the guys that when we're interviewing staff is, like, it's quite fast paced, the end of the industry that we're in, because things that people are designing on Monday could be getting built the following Monday. And you know, there's other consultants that would specialise in feasibility studies and reports, and that's all valid and it needs to be done. And there's a process like a water treatment plant doesn't happen because somebody decides on Monday I need a water treatment plant and they're going to start designing on Tuesday. There's a whole lot of feasibility and study and route selection, site assessments, planning, and all that before it gets to the bit that we're doing at the end. You know, so there's different sort of design stages through the process that are all have civil engineers involved in it, and
Everything from business case upwards.
Yeah.
So
and I suppose we're at the end of it where it's the detailed design, exactly how thick is that wall, how high is that tank, how much steel goes in that, you know, that's the end of it we're in. And because we're working with the guys building it, we're always trying to optimize those designs and get them as lean as possible, because it has a very direct bearing on the cost. And by default, if we can use less material, the cost will come down. And one of the things that we do that a lot of consultants don't do is we also provide what are called temporary works designs. So it's sometimes you need to build something temporarily to allow you to build the thing you're building. And we look for opportunities where we can combine these things. It typically ends up in geotechnical or structural elements where we can combine the size of the temporary thing and the permanent thing, and you build the thing once, you build it quicker, you build it cheaper, you use less materials. So we're constantly looking for opportunities like that where you can combine these things to optimize it.
it's a big opportunity for added value to our designs when we sort of take that sort of holistic approach.
You mentioned earlier an office in Limerick, an office in the Republic of Ireland, an expansion into GB. What are the differences between the three marketplaces, if you like?
Well, I suppose we have a big focus in the water sector. Like the water sector, it encompasses everything, you know, from the civil and structural and the geotechnical things. There's significant investment in water in GB with the recent AMCE awards, which is their big investment cycle. It's called the AMCE cycle. It's the same with Irish Water, or East Garran as they're called now. They have a lot of work happening, and Northern Ireland Water are constantly sort of investing. So that's what we're sort of underpinned with a lot of water work, and then off the back of that, we can grow the teams and the other things. So, you know, as Paul touched on earlier, you know, he could be designing a tank in Cork on a Monday and designing a hotel in Belfast on a Tuesday. So how we've ended up growing the business is it's underpinned by the water sector, but because of the relationships and the reputations we have, we know other developers, we know other contractors that are doing other things, and you know,
a lot of it's reputation based as well. The word does get around, and you get a lot of repeat work from that. And I say, if water sort of underpins the business, it gives us that opportunity then to spread out, and that's why we're involved in hotels and buildings and hospitals and bridges and the like. So it works well for us. Yeah.
You know, I have a saying that Sarah would laugh at me a bit about, that I say it all the time, where I say people do business with people, and those relationships matter, and that's what has driven the business. Like we've grown very quickly. We haven't really had to tend to that much, if I'm honest. A lot of it is relationships that we've had from previous lives, and previous employment, where we had a reputation relationship with people, and they need something done, and they come to us. So, we you know, we've capitalized on that. And when you look at the water sector, okay, NI Water has a particular issue at the minute with funding and how the politicians are going to need to work out some sort of sustainable funding model for it. But it's a sector that's constantly invested in. Like, you know, whilst people will see when it's in a boom time, that hotel's going up and that building's going up or whatever, they're constantly upgrading pipes, they're constantly upgrading treatment plants, they're constantly upgrading networks. It's a constant investment cycle.
It nearly underpins everything else. You'll not get another housing development if there's no more capacity in the network. You'll not get another hotel if there's no ability to treat more water. So yeah.
And I suppose it's a knock-on effect from every one of those other developments. There's joiners, and there's plumbers, and there's sparks, and there's interior designers, and there's people selling furniture, and there's
jobs at the end of it as well to operate these things. So yeah,
there's a massive multiplier effect from it, and at times I think that gets forgotten about. That if it's not there, and the other things aren't happening, like the knock-on effect is massively significant.
So tell me a little bit about the Narrow Water Bridge project down at Carlingford.
Yeah, so we've been appointed by one of our regular clients, BAM, to give them assistance in the design of enabling and temporary works associated with the Narrow Water Bridge. It's quite an exciting project, quite a high-profile project. They are bringing the bridge in, the section we're working on, they're bringing it in 3 sections, a large pylon for the cable stays and 2 sections of deck. And they're floating it in up the river in a barge, and we're providing a temporary structure to enable them to set the sections of the bridge off the barge and roll it up into position, and to support it there temporarily until they can get all the cable stays complete and all the concrete works associated with the bridge and all the fixtures and furniture on the bridge. So it's an interesting project because it is. It's a little bit outside the box. We're working very closely with the contractor about how we can bring efficiencies and how we got to deal with the pies and how can we extract the pies and how can we get skid beams out. There's a lot more to it than just designing sections and coming up with sizes, and that's one of the sides of the project I like getting involved in. Sort of working how the whole process works and how we can add a little bit of value with the way the guys are going to construct this on site and seeing what opportunities we can bring to them and what they haven't maybe considered. So yeah, it's a very exciting project, and it's one that's kicking off on site right now at the minute, and we're right in the middle of it, and we're really looking forward to seeing it come together.
Any other current projects that you think reflect what you do particularly well?
There's a project that we've just finished called the Terryland Water Treatment Plant project. And there was a job in Galway that we did with Coffee Construction, who would be one of our key clients. And it was effectively putting a big tank and a big intake structure on the Corrib River in Galway. So it's just facing NUIG. You've got the N6 Quincentennial Bridge, or whatever it's called, just beside it. Very, very open, very exposed. There's 2 primary routes into Galway, and this is one of them. So there's thousands of cars passing this thing, can see it all day. And effectively, we were digging a 5 or 6 meter deep hole lower than the river to take water out of the river, then building a tunnel over to the treatment plant to take water out of the river and send to the treatment plant to be treated, and then serve Galway and the environs for water. And it was a very technically challenging job. The Corrib River is one of the fastest flowing rivers in Europe. And if you imagine, we were trying to dig a hole the height of a house underneath the river. So we had to design temporary sheet pile cofferdams are called, to effectively give us a watertight box that guys could dig a big hole and build a big tank out into one of the fastest flowing rivers in Europe. So we joked at the start of it that it was a big job for us when we got it. It would be a big job now, but when we got it, we'd a lot less staff, and we were joking, saying, "This is a great job. If this goes wrong, we're going to get in the news." Yeah. Because it was the sort of job it wouldn't go a small bit wrong. Yeah. Nothing happened, thankfully. The Coffee, the contractor, are a very competent contractor. We worked really closely with them in terms of construction sequences, so that we could get a really lean and optimized design whilst taking cognizance of the particular risks and challenges of that job. So it ended up, it's a job where, as I say, we're taking water out of the river. It goes through this quite complicated hydraulic structure that is there's a bit of it that catches sediment that comes out of the river. Like, you don't want to take sediment out of the river and stick it through the treatment plant because you don't want sediment in your drinking water. So there's a bit where it catches sediment. There's a bit that catches fish. There's a lot of fish in that river. And there's quite a complicated and fancy fish screen that takes fish out of the tank and puts them back in the river.
There are fish deterrent lights as well.
There's these like strobe lights at the front that flash that are meant to deter fish from coming into it. You come out of that, and there was a tunnel and went underneath one of the main roads into Galway. There was a tunnel pipeline we designed that under like an archaeological site. Then there was another river we had to go under, which had like historic sort of lining walls that we had to number the stones as they came down to put the stones back in their right place, and then I went into the treatment plant. So like that was a job. When we say we do civil, structural, and geotechnical engineering, there was complex civil engineering there, complex structural engineering, and complex geotechnical, and it's been a really successful job. We did some quite complicated temporary works designs on it for the coffer dam, but also for if you imagine you're digging a hole underneath the river, the water that's in the river is going to want to come into that hole. So you need to pump that out so the guys can build it. But when that comes out, it's full of like silt and sediment. So we had to design a big, enormous detention pond where the flow then meanders through it. And based on the speed it meanders through, the sediment falls out of it and then it goes back into the river clean. And all this was happening 100 metres from Inland Fisheries Ireland head office. So you have a fisheries river,
No pressure.
So like, there was a scope for a work to treat. And it's been a great job. It's been nominated for a couple of awards. It was nominated for a BIM Excellence Award and shortlisted. Unfortunately, we didn't win that one. But it's nominated for a SECA major project. SECA is the Civil Engineering Contractors Association, and we've an awards dinner next week on the 20th in Dublin that we're attending with coffee, and that's for major civil engineering projects. Greater than £10 million is the award, so fingers crossed.
Terryland was an excellent project because it was so collaborative. And I can remember at the very, very start, we were down in Athenry at the contractor's office, sitting around a table. Obviously, all these really major engineering challenges ahead of us, and everyone's sort of still scratching their heads about how can we do this? What's the best sequence of work to do this? And we're throwing up ideas on the sketchboard with the contractor. And yes, we're throwing up silly ideas sometimes, but it would lead to something else. And that sort of collaborative approach from the very, very start of the project, it got everyone thinking properly about how we're going to build these structures, but more importantly, how this temporary work's going to work, and how are we going to get issue piles in, and what happens if water? What's the backup plan if water starts coming in? So we had sort of thought through all these processes, and what if this happens, and what if that happens, and how do we react to this, and where's the crane going to go, and how are we going to set this crane up so it doesn't impact the temporary work, so we can get it all sitting properly. So these conversations were very organic and off the cuff at the start, but it started formulating this bit of a seed, a bit of a nugget that we started building upon. And as I say, the job was extremely successful, and I think it really, really benefited from that sort of that upfront collaborative working at the very, very start of the project. And certainly it brought a lot of benefit to how we go about designing it, because we had all agreed the process. We sort of agreed the parameters. We had worked with the employer's rep on a few of the variables and really pinned down what we were going to do and got it all agreed in advance. And really meant that from the off, we're on the right foot with the contractor and with the client. And I think that was one of the key things in order to give us the sort of success that we had.
Yeah, and without meaning to sound like really corny, all those conversations, it nearly started, what is the basis of engineering, which is like, how are we going to do this?
Yeah, problem solving.
Yeah, how, like it was literally, you're looking at this going, okay, we know what we need to do.
Yeah.
But how? And as Paul said, there was a lot of time spent, and like it was one of those, it was a very sort of free and open sort of environment where there was no such thing as a stupid idea, because it was such a complex challenge that the right solution is a combination of stupid ideas or what seem like stupid ideas and sensible ideas, because
Until you start putting them together.
and I said, well, maybe if we do a bit of this and a bit of that, and we add this on here, that looks like it might work, you know. And it was just because it was one of those types of jobs where, like, you know, it was easy to see the problems because there were so many of them, and the challenges. But I suppose challenges are there to be overcome.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The challenges are there to find a solution for, and that's what we do day in, day out on any job, be it a bridge, be it a hospital, be it a school, be it a hotel. It's just how you approach those problems, and how one of the key things, how do you approach it collaboratively with other people in the team, because there's bigger things going on than just us, and really in the end of the day we just want to do the job right.
And it's easy to look at those types of things and see the risk. And there are people that would look at things like that and say that's too risky, I'm not getting involved. And that's absolutely fine if that's the way people want to do. We're probably a bit, I wouldn't say we're cavalier, but certainly we're happy to look at the risk and come up with a way to manage it and mitigate it. It's easy to say no. It's a lot harder to say yes. And it's probably even harder to say to your client, yeah, we can make this work, but see, the way you want to do it, that's not the way it's going to have to happen. You need to listen to us, or, you know, you've came to us for a reason. You know, you're paying us to do something, and we're telling you this is how this can work. And, you know, and sometimes that may cost more money than they've allowed, and they are conversations we've had, but, like, you know, it's
the right way to do things.
We're comfortable with risk. Is maybe the best way to put it, is it?
Yeah, risk exists in everything. There's some jobs are less have less risk associated with them than others, whereas we are very keen to get involved in these really complex jobs where there is risk, because we're confident in ourselves. We know how we can manage and eliminate risks. We know how we can go through certain processes with contractors and lay out parameters and saying, like, guys, this is how we're going to do it, and this is why we're going to do it this way, because it removes X, Y, and Z risks, or it mitigates risks. And so we're quite confident in ourselves that we know how to address these problems. And again, that's one of the reasons why contractors keep coming back to us, because they see the benefit in that. You know, anybody can go out, as I keep saying, anybody can go out and design a beam or design a tank. Very few people will say, I can design a tank that's 4 meters below a river, right in a river, that when we take the sheet piles out, it's going to be sucking water of that river, and it's going to be a tunnel under a motorway and passing a historic monument and under a river. You know, those are the sorts of things that scare people, but it doesn't scare us. We sort of thrive in challenges like that. So,
but it's all underpinned by the drive for technical sort of ability and excellence. And Paul and I have both been very lucky in our career. We've been able to work on lots of different things. So we've seen lots of different things. We're comfortable with how to design them. You know, some of our guys have worked in the contracting side of things, so we know how things get built and put together. So we're sort of comfortable to look at something, assess the risk, and say, yeah, we know how to mitigate this, and we can help you with the solution here. It's working well, and that's why, I suppose that's why we've ended up in this end of it, in the contractor and the design and build end of it, because I suppose we're comfortable there. A lot of people aren't. There are large multinational consultants, and I'm sure they're as clever as we are, but where they see us, we see opportunity, and it's maybe just that sort of perception of risk.
I suppose in closing, business leaders have to be, by their nature, optimists. Are you both optimistic about the future of this company and the marketplace?
Absolutely.
There's lots of potential yet. Still feel we're still very much at the start of the curve. And I think we'd both be very open-minded, and we're not risk averse. We're willing to invest and then take a punt on things and see how they go. So yeah, I'd be very optimistic.
Like, you know, our plan here for the next 3 to 5 years is to be at 50 people. And I think that's it's not only doable, it's probably a bit conservative. Like, there's enough work happening across the core markets we're in and the regions that we're in, but it's all going to be underpinned, as Paul touched on earlier, by having the right staff. Like it's it's totally counterproductive to grow too quickly and not sustainably, because, as we say, our relationships and our reputation with our clients is of paramount importance to us. So by growing too quickly and maybe employing maybe not the right people, quality will suffer, relationships suffer, reputation suffer. So, we could probably go out and grow this thing to 50 people in 2 years by just buying a load of work and employing a load of people. They may not be the right people, and it may not be the right work. So it's a very structured plan is what we're going after, so that it is sustainable and it continues, as opposed to going boom and bust very, very quickly.
Key thing will be to keep existing clients happy, because getting repeat work is much easier than having to go out and find new clients and new projects. So the key for us is to work with particular clients, work well with them, do a really good job for them, and keep them coming back. And that's sort of paramount. I will do work, and as we organically grow, we'll spread that and we'll build that. But our focus will be on those key repeat clients, because they're critical to everything that we do.
Aidan, Paul, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.